Hey listener, before we get into the episode, we want to point out that this movie is rated PG-13 for sexual content, drug, and alcohol use and language. We've linked the Parents Guide in the show notes that we would encourage you to take a look at before deciding on whether or not to watch. As always, we encourage you to follow your convictions and guidance from the Holy Spirit. Okay, let's get into the episode.
People want to go on the internet and check out their friends, so why not build a website that offers that? Friends, pictures, profiles, whatever you can visit, browse around. Maybe it's someone you just met at a party. But I'm not talking about a dating site. I'm talking about taking the entire social experience of college and putting it online.
I can't feel my legs.
I know. I'm totally psyched about this too, but Wardo.
Yeah.
It would be exclusive.
You would have to know the people on the site to get past your own page, like getting punched.
Well, that's good.
Wardo, it's like a final club except for the president.
I told him I thought it sounded great. It was a great idea. See, in a world where social structure was everything, that was the thing.
You know who I will not stand for having on the pod? If any celebrity ever heard this and was like, I want to be on that podcast, we would jump on. We'd be excited.
Of course.
There's no one we'd say no to. There's someone I would say no to or say yes to just to
And
have
then
a
not both.
sit-down conversation with him. It's Bill Paxton.
I haven't experienced him enough to say that for sure, but I haven't enjoyed him.
The only reason I would say yes to that is so I could tell him how bad I think he is. I'd only seen him in like maybe one thing as a kid.
Yeah.
And then as I'm watching like, movies from the 90s, early 2000s, 80s, and he's in Alien and he's in Tombstone and, every movie he's in, he's the worst person in that movie.
Yeah. It's fair to say.
And the more I thought about it, the more passionate I got about it. And now I've just staked my claim and I've put my flag on the ground that I hate Bill Paxton.
Anti-Bill.
Yeah.
You hate his guts.
You know who I love that we get to talk about today? Andrew Garfield.
Oh, me too.
I love me some Andrew Garfield.
I love him. This was not a double feature, but within a couple weeks of each other, Tick, Tick, Boom and this. And he's really, I told you this, making a case for being my favorite actor.
He's phenomenal in everything he does.
Yeah.
Everything I've seen him in.
And I think the reason why Tick, Tick, Boom was so interesting, I really think he should have won the Oscar for that, is he's a known person now, right? Like we get his persona, very much a cool guy. Like you want to be buddies with Andrew Garfield. And then he comes out as Jonathan Larson and he's this weird theater. It's like he was another person. Like every actor, it's like, yeah, they're playing a role, but his mannerisms, like all the small stuff was there where it's like, I don't think I would like this guy, but it's Andrew Garfield.
Right.
It
helps to know the person's personality before, because then you can appreciate just how
different it is. Yeah.
Yeah. When you have never seen that actor before and they act that way, if they do a good job, you just assume like that's how they are. Like that's their personality.
Yeah. This was my first experience with Andrew Garfield, was The Social Network.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it was The Amazing Spider-Man for me.
Yeah. Which was after. So you were late to the game on
I was late to the game on this.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 2010. I was 13.
Yeah. I definitely didn't see it in theaters.
My parents were not letting me watch
PG-13 films at the age of 13.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone I knew was like, anyone 13 was into this style of movie yet.
Yeah.
Clearly, I was just wanting to go see The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I didn't care about
the Spider-Man of a generation.
The Spider
for just a blink. He was the Spider-Man of a generation.
And then I saw him in Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah.
He was awesome in Hacksaw Ridge. Oh, then he did Silence. He was phenomenal.
Oh, so good.
He's phenomenal in everything.
Yeah, he's really good in everything. He's the anti-Bill Paxton.
He's the anti-Bill Paxton. Every movie he's in, he steals the show because
He's the best part.
Yeah.
I think this movie, people walked away from this movie saying, oh, Jesse Eisenberg is going to be a big star and Andrew Garfield was good. But I think as it's aged and we've seen the careers of both of them, it's really clear that Andrew Garfield carried this film.
Definitely. And also kind of in that idea of actors, you think of them as their personality. I feel like Jesse Eisenberg kind of always plays sort of similar to this character.
Yeah.
A little bit pretentious.
Definitely Lex Luthor. Well, that's why I think that whenever they were casting Lex Luthor, they were like, we want him to be kind of a modern billionaire. And Jesse Eisenberg is Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
So let's just do that basically. But we don't want to do it the exact same. So let's make him a little bit crazy. It just didn't work.
Yeah. And I don't know. What else have you seen Jesse Eisenberg in?
Zombieland, he's good.
I've only seen that once, but I do remember him being good.
I don't know that I could name another. I feel like I have seen him in other stuff, but I don't know.
Oh, he was in the Now You See Me movies.
Oh, yeah.
But again, kind of a little pretentious, a little overly confident.
He, honestly, I think Jesse Eisenberg he's almost like the millennial version of Robert Downey Jr. in a terrible way of like Robert Downey Jr. always plays very cocky, self-confident, talks fast, like smarter than everybody in the room, but very likable. Cool. Yeah, very cool. Jesse Eisenberg is missing that last piece. In the characters he plays, I don't know how
Robert Downey Jr., you want him to insult you.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I would feel great if you made fun of me.
Right.
Jesse Eisenberg, I'm like, I want to insult you.
Yeah.
I kind of want to make fun of you.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm going very aggressive on this podcast.
Yeah.
The morning pod.
Also, needs to be said, this was Justin Timberlake's 1 year as a movie star.
He had this. He had In Time. What else was he in?
He did lots of like Sandberg stuff. It was like he was really good on SNL, and then people were like, oh, this dude can act, and people like him.
Yeah.
And then they put him in a bunch of stuff, and then he stopped immediately.
Oh, he was in that one rom-com thing, too.
No Strings Attached.
No Strings Attached.
Not endorsing.
I haven't seen it.
It's like it's Friends with Benefits, basically.
Oh, it's perfect for this podcast.
We got to cover it.
He's the type of person. I personally was someone who was like this. I saw him in a movie, and it was, I was a young enough kid, and it was far enough after his boy band days that I just took no note of him. I just thought he was another actor and didn't really pay any mind. He's not fantastic, but he wasn't terrible.
He was fine.
Yeah, he's just kind of normal as far as acting goes. So, I mean, that's got to say something.
Yeah.
But then afterward, I was like, oh, wow, he's a big deal. He apparently did music, too. Did you guys know this?
Guys, this is breaking news.
How did nobody know?
Yeah. Okay, couple other catches about the film that I had. Sean Parker. He is in any scene where he's meant to be like this kind of paranoid, like crazy guy. Mm-hmm. He sounds very normal to the 2024 ear. So here's some of the things he says.
I'm not a psychiatrist, but...
I'm glad we've got that on the record.
You're not a psychiatrist, but what?
A psychiatrist would say that he was paranoid.
They'll hire private detectives who will follow you day and night. You're a target for high-priced escorts. I can't prove it, but I know they tap my phones. Whatever it is that's gonna trip you up, you've done already. Private behavior is a relic of a time gone by. And if somehow, some way...
Then at the end, at the party, he says...
We lived on farms, and then we lived in cities, and now we're going to live on the internet.
Sean, stop.
First we lived on farms. Then we lived in cities. Now we are going to live on the internet. Does that sound familiar, Mark Zuckerberg? So this is, you said you've seen this like a halftime before this.
Yeah, I've only seen, I watched about 75 or 80% of it in college.
Yeah.
And then rewatching it now.
Yeah.
First time all the way through.
Nice. What'd you think?
It's phenomenal for a movie that is a dramatized biography or a true story of a person's rise. It's for sure the best.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And they don't even go into like childhood, or they don't even go, further than kind of the establishment of Facebook. And still, it's just that small window of time from college to creation of Facebook that you maybe wouldn't think would be all that exciting. And I was locked in on every scene.
Yeah.
Like, the acting is done well enough, the pacing and the story of it is gripping enough that you kind of forget it's a true story.
Yeah.
And then after the movie, you're like, oh, that was really good. And then you're like, oh, also forgot that actually kind of happened.
Right.
Which I definitely wonder how much of that is true.
Yeah.
I really wonder what Mark Zuckerberg's thoughts on this movie are.
Yeah. So I did a little bit of research. It seems like basically everybody involved says this is not accurate. I couldn't find anything from Eduardo, which honestly kind of makes me even think that it's still not accurate, because, I mean, nobody loves this movie more than the real Eduardo Saverin.
Yeah.
He comes out as the hero.
Yeah.
He's
the guy you root for.
Exactly. So Mark Zuckerberg came out and said, this is not close to true. It wouldn't be interesting enough to just show a bunch of guys coding in a room, so they had to create drama around it. Sean Parker said Justin Timberlake tried to meet him, and he said he reached out about meeting him to like do research on the role, and Sean Parker allegedly said meeting Sean Parker is not going to help you because Sean Parker is nothing like the Sean Parker character in Aaron Sorkin's screenplay. So both of those people who've spoken out and said it's not accurate look like terrible in this movie.
Yeah,
so it's hard to say that it's true.
But I kind of fall the other way, where if those two guys, Mark Zuckerberg and Sean Parker, say it's not true, you're like, yeah, you would say that because you look awful in this movie. And then the lawsuits were true.
Yeah.
Like, those did happen.
Right.
So Eduardo did sue Mark.
Yeah.
And as best I know, the twins also did.
Yeah, they did.
So that all feels true. And I would assume that more of those kind of bigger details are true. So I'd assume that like the Face Mash website he made in the beginning probably actually happened.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes me think, oh, maybe it's more true than they, feel it is.
Yeah.
Like, they don't feel like their feelings or choices were validated by the movie choice.
Yeah.
But at the end of the movie, it does say that Eduardo, they reached an undisclosed settlement and his name was back on the masthead.
Yeah.
So one, makes me think they paid him a ton of money. Yeah. Two, makes me think that maybe he and Mark kind of made up a little bit to like sort of be friends. And, maybe they didn't want to make it public and whatnot. But probably in that settlement was a non-disclosure agreement for him to not talk about it.
Yeah.
So then when this movie came out, I bet he
probably couldn't say
talk
anything
about it.
Yeah, totally. I think the way I have interpreted the rhetoric around it and the film is probably a lot of what actually happens is probably pretty close to accurate. I think the character motivations were made into a little bit more of a caricature of themselves, and probably in ways that are not totally true or fair to them.
Well, and we've seen enough interviews and things with Mark Zuckerberg in recent years, or interrogations, where you realize he's not the most cutthroat looking guy or acting guy.
Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg definitely plays a much more intimidating, less
socially smiley. Like, he's just more evil, it feels like especially towards the end. It's like he understands the things that he's saying and the implications of what he's doing. And I think Mark Zuckerberg is more just really good coder, completely socially unaware.
Yeah. Well, and you have to condense, maybe all of the feelings from a lifetime or from years of like, and emotions change and feelings change. But overall, maybe that feeling of social inadequacy or whatever spread out over years does not show itself as evil as when you compress it to a 2-hour movie.
Right.
And then you have to, show it a little bit more, a little bit faster, a little bit harder. So it comes out different than probably how he felt it.
Yep. So I picked the movie. What I expected in choosing this movie and what I think is actually portrayed is slightly different. So what I expected our conversation to kind of center around, and I think it still does, is the verse, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but forfeit his soul? And so what I thought that was going to be kind of a conversation about was a conversation about greed, right? Building bigger barns. He's cutthroat. Whenever I think about this movie, I think of two shots. I think of the end, the very last shot where it says Mark Zuckerberg is the youngest billionaire in the world and he's frowning. I think that's intentional. It's clear that his money has not satisfied him. Mm-hmm. Also think about Eduardo in his testimony whenever he says to Mark, I was your only friend. Mm-hmm. You had one friend. So he's willing to burn down everything for more money is what I expected.
That was the hardest hitting line in the movie for me.
Yeah.
Was when he said that.
Yep. But I don't think it's a movie about greed at all. I think there's 2 points where it's essentially communicated to us that this is not a movie about money. Mark's motivations are not about money. So we hear it in 2 places. We hear it from both Mark and Eduardo, which makes me think that this is the truth.
Gretchen. Jealous of Eduardo.
Oh, stop typing. We're off the record.
I know you've done your homework, and so you know that money isn't a big part of my life, but at the moment I could buy Mount Auburn Street, take the Phoenix Club, and turn it into my ping pong room.
Okay, so Mark says, money, I don't really care about it.
Mm-hmm. But I have a lot.
I have a lot. Eduardo, whenever he's having the conversation with the lawyers, whenever they're restructuring, they're doing like the corporate restructuring stock thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love working with business majors.
Economics.
Right.
You should know that Mark has already taken his percentage from 60 down to 51.
Oh. Well, Mark doesn't care about money, and he needs to be protected.
Essentially saying this is a good decision. Mark doesn't care about money. Mm-hmm. So money, the love of money is really not what's driving him.
Right.
He's motivated because of a couple things. But I think the primary themes are insecurity, arrogance, and pride, and how they're all really the same thing. Let's dive into a recap here, shall we?
Let's do it.
The Social Network is a biographical drama directed by David Fincher, chronicling the founding and rise of Facebook. The film primarily follows the story of Mark Zuckerberg, a Harvard student who creates the social networking platform. After a bitter breakup with his girlfriend, Zuckerberg launches FaceMash, a website that rates the attractiveness of female students. This attracts the attention of twins Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, who enlist Zuckerberg's help in creating a social networking site for Harvard students called Harvard Connection. Zuckerberg, with the assistance of his friend Eduardo Saverin, instead creates the Facebook, with financial backing from Saverin. Zuckerberg's circle of influence is tested. New mentor Sean Parker provides Zuck with an aspirational vision of what Facebook could become. Meanwhile, Mark and Eduardo become more and more estranged. The man who would shape human connection for the 21st century is forced to take notice of his own relationships. So, the way that I have seen this movie has kind of evolved as I've gotten older and more mature, I think. I think growing up, I watched this movie as like an inspirational, like, oh, wow, like they're starting from nothing and becoming, they're taking over the world and they're doing it from somebody's back house, essentially,
This very much felt like a similar vibe to how some guys view like American Psycho, where they just view Christian Bale as like, oh, he's the man,
so cool,
so suave, and then you watch it and you're like, oh, he's actually a psycho,
right? Yeah, and I think the reality and I think the intention of the film, I don't know for sure, is that this is a cautionary tale of really what your priorities are. I think the line that always stuck out to me that I would walk away from watching this movie and just be fired up is whenever the president of the university says, Harvard students believe that inventing a job is better than getting a job. And that was always like, oh yeah, like there's something in me. It's like entrepreneurship, like do this for yourself. Like that's so cool. Like that's the ultimate thing,
to like,
you know,
make something.
Right. And I think what I missed when watching this is the cost that's associated with that. And not necessarily to say that this is a anti-entrepreneurial movie, but I think it is a, like, your intentions matter whenever you're doing this kind of thing. Right.
Yeah. I was in a Bible study with some guys last year, and we did a little bit of a study and discussion on Christians, believers. Can you follow Jesus well while going into politics, going into acting, going into business, going into all these different things? Short answer is yes, of course. Believers should be doing everything, but it is very complicated. The bigger the money gets, the bigger the fame, the bigger the stage, the more difficult it would be to be making decisions based on the Lord's instruction versus money's instruction or investors' instruction or, what would save face, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So not that any entrepreneurship is in any way bad or anything like that, but I think exactly what you're getting at is this is more of a cautionary tale of, hey, this guy made it, quote unquote, in the way that the world would view it. Yeah. Money and fame, and grew a big company from the ground up, changed the world, but it cost him everything. Right.
Yeah. And I think kind of what you're getting at is like, I think the character of Mark Zuckerberg in this, and I think it is helpful to say like the character, and like I don't know what the real person is the movie, like,
not the real guy.
Right. I think the character of Mark is interesting because he's kind of what's underneath is amplified as he grows in his accomplishment and just as he progresses throughout the movie. It's clear that like underneath the surface, Mark is incredibly insecure at the start of the film. There's a few examples of this. I think it's most clear whenever it's the dynamic of Eduardo and Mark whenever it comes to the Phoenix Club, what do they call them? Final clubs.
Yeah, and he corrects his date on that. Final clubs. That's right. Not finals
clubs. I think even in that conversation, it's like she says something to the effect of, he's talking on and on and on about this. She's like, whatever, I'll engage in the competition. Which one's the easiest to get into? And he's like, why would you say that?
Okay, well, which is the easiest to get into?
Why would you ask me that?
I was just asking.
None of them. That's the point. My friend Eduardo made $300,000 betting oil futures one summer, and Eduardo won't come close to getting in. The ability to make money doesn't impress anybody around here.
Must be nice. He made $300,000 in the summer?
He likes meteorology.
You said it was oil futures.
You can read the weather, you can predict the price of heating oil. I think you asked me that because you think the final club that's easiest to get into is the one where I'll have the best chance.
What?
You asked me which one was the easiest to get into because you think that that's the one where I'll have the best chance.
The one that's the easiest to get into would be the one where anybody has the best chance.
You didn't ask me which one was the best one, you asked me which one was the easiest one.
I was honestly just asking, okay? I was just asking to ask.
Why would you ask me that?
Yeah, he immediately took it as an insult.
It's like, you're saying something about me here. Like, why would you put me on that level? And she wasn't thinking about him at all. But he made it about himself.
He's like, why would you assume I can't get into the hard ones?
Right.
You're asking that question because you think I can only get into the easiest one.
Right. So he makes this whole issue about himself. Thing with Eduardo, it's like, he can't be happy for his friend. His friend, at Caribbean night, he's like, I got punched by the Phoenix, whatever that means. I guess he's initiated, or he's starting the initiation.
I think I've come up with something.
Hang on, I gotta tell you something that you're not gonna believe.
What?
I got punched by the Phoenix.
Are you kidding?
No. I mean, it's just the first of a four-step process. But they slid the invitation under my door tonight. And my first punch party tomorrow.
So, you got punched by the Phoenix.
Yeah. It's probably just a diversity thing. It's just a diversity thing. Just ride that horse until, what did you want to talk to me about?
When he brings it up, he's very dismissive of it, doesn't really talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of makes you think, oh, he doesn't care. So he's moving on. He has this other idea he wants to talk about. And then the fact that he ends that conversation with saying it probably was a diversity thing, lets you know, oh, he is thinking about it.
Right.
It does bother him.
Yep.
It probably was a diversity thing. But so what?
He's obviously insecure, and that you can use context to figure out what he's insecure about, but I think it's telegraphed through the screenplay. I think the screenplay of this movie is like one of the best.
Yeah.
There's a couple places where I think they pretty much tell us this is what his insecurity is. So at the end of the conversation with Erica, the girl who's breaking up with him in the opening scene, she says,
so we're even.
I think we should just be friends.
I don't want friends.
I was just being polite. I have no intention of being friends with
I'm
you.
under some pressure right now.
I think we should just be friends. He responds, I don't want friends. And it's really obvious this is untrue. But he says it, and then she's like, I don't want to be your friend anyway. I was just saying that to be nice.
Yeah.
I think the way that it's really, really telegraphed that it's not true is the closing of the movie is he sends her a friend request.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there refreshing, waiting for it. Got his billions of dollars in the bank account. And he's just sitting around waiting to see if this girl will be his friend.
I was gonna bring that up if you didn't, because the Erica is the flag signaling to the audience about Mark's emotional stability.
Mm-hmm.
That opening scene tells us everything we need to know about Mark's character. Like that opening conversation, he's uber smart. He's not great at picking up social cues. He's, like you said, insecure. He's wanting that affirmation, and he's like striving for something. He's always thinking about the next thing.
Yeah.
And then periodically throughout the movie, Erica's not really a big character.
Yeah.
But they set up Mark there in that scene. So we know who Mark is.
Yep.
And then periodically throughout the movie, it's just a quick scene with Erica here, quick scene with Erica there, ends the movie with him refreshing Erica's page.
Yep. It's the bookends of the movie is him denying that he wants to be her friend, right. And then him admitting to himself, that is what I want.
Yeah. The fact that every time she comes up, we see, okay, he's still at the same place.
Right.
He's still not moved on from that. And the movie ends that way. And you realize, okay, his money's changed, his situation's changed, his company's changed, his friends have changed. He's still at the same place.
Right.
He gained nothing.
Yep. I think another place that it really cleverly shows us this is right before that, whenever he's talking with Rashida Jones, which it's just hilarious to me that she's in this movie.
I wanted to bring that up because I was like, what is her character? I kept thinking she was going to do something more. She like has 2 lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
She laughs one time in the deposition, and then she doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
I thought maybe that was like his wife in real life. That's how they met or something. So I was like looking it up.
That would be wild.
It's not. I was like, I don't know what she was doing in this movie.
I think what they were trying to do is humanize him a little bit. She can kind of see through him a little bit. At the end, she's like, you're not an a-hole, Mark. You're just trying so hard to be. I don't know if it lands totally. But anyways, just before that, before he friends Erica, she says, she's talking about like what she does. She says, I specialize in jury selection.
I invented Facebook.
I'm talking about a jury. I specialize in voir dire, jury selection. What a jury sees when they look at a defendant. Clothes, hair, speaking style, likability.
Likability. Then Marx kind of scoffs and says, likability. What we can diagnose from within that scene is the things that are the source of his insecurity is he wants to be likable and he wants friends. which I think really demonstrates, I think that this is an awesome screenplay, whether it's accurate or not, but they turn him into a caricature of Facebook, of social media, of he wants likes and he wants friends, which is the things that you're insecure and chasing on Facebook. But they do it in this really subtle and clever way.
The story is about him creating essentially what we know as social media now.
Yeah.
But it's really a commentary on the people who use social media.
Right.
The rest of society.
Yep.
Wow.
So that's kind of his insecurity. I think even the filmmakers would agree this is his kind of his flaw as a character, is his insecurity and his desire to be liked. Proverbs 29:25 says, "It is dangerous to be concerned with what other people think of you, but if you trust in the Lord, you are safe." It's clear that Mark as a character has low self-esteem at times, right? So we would diagnose him in these ways as he has low self-esteem because he's lacking in these certain places. But at the same time, if you listen to any of the dialogue in this movie, it's so clear that Mark is an extremely arrogant character. He has he has a low view of himself because he has low self-esteem, but he also has an overinflated and high view of himself because of the areas that he's successful. Like, I think the character of Sean Parker kind of serves as this voice of temptation to Mark. He represents the promise that if Mark is successful, then he'll be cool.
The Facebook is cool. That's what it's got going for it. Yeah. You don't want to ruin it with ads because ads aren't cool. Exactly. It's like you're throwing the greatest party on campus and someone's saying it's got to be over by 11. That's exactly right. You don't even know what the thing is yet. That's exactly how big it can get, how far it can go. This is no time to take your chips down. $1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool? You.
$1 billion.
Mark's not chasing money. He's not greedy. What he's chasing is what that money says about him.
Yeah. Sean Parker and Eduardo feel like the two feuding halves of Mark, that the conflict he's feeling within himself. He wants to be Sean Parker, the cool guy, gets all the girls, has all the money, is respected as this young genius, like trailblazer.
Yep.
But he feels like Eduardo. And so anything that Eduardo does that's remotely uncool, he immediately wants to remove himself from that because he's like, I want to be associated with the cool. Even though Eduardo is more of the kind of feels like the true deep down heart of Mark.
Right.
He's the one who actually knows him. He's the friend. He's the person who wants to not just chase after success and fame.
Yeah, I think that there's a really, really telling scene where it's whenever he first comes to California, he comes in out of the rain and Mark forgot to pick him up from the airport. He asked to speak privately with Mark.
I do not want that guy representing himself as part of this company.
You gotta move out here, Martyr. This is where it's all happened.
Did you hear what I just said?
The connections, the energy.
Mark, you got it.
I'm afraid if you don't come out here, you're gonna get left behind. I need you out here. Please don't tell him I said that.
What did you just say?
It's moving faster than any of us ever imagined it would.
And Mark basically says, Eduardo, you got to get out here. I'm afraid that if you don't come out here, you're going to get left behind. And then he kind of like shrivels up and then he says, don't tell him that I said that, in reference to Sean. Mark is the boss. He should have control over Sean, but really Sean is the one who's in control. Yeah. And so to take the metaphor further, it's like Mark's no longer in control of himself. His desire for fame and or not even fame, his desire to be popular, his desire to be cool is in control.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back.
Hey, listener, I've got one word for you, storyteller. Now I've got another word for you. You ready? Comforter. Now let's put those together. What do you get? That's right, Lexi Chase Media. Lexi Chase Media offers wedding photography or videography to capture the biggest moments of your life. Lexi Chase Media actually shot my wedding, and I've got to say those photos came out phenomenal, made our day better, made our memories better, and we still look at them today. We had considered hiring Lexi's competition, and no kidding, we dodged a bullet. Talk about getting this marriage off on the right note. Lexi Chase Media is offering 10% off services in 2024 when you tell her that the Credits Boys sent you. So go ahead and reach out with the link in the show notes today.
All right, back to the show.
Well, and even in that scene, when he's alone with Eduardo, who's his real friend, he actually does ask about his friend.
Yeah.
And we see that he hasn't been doing that because he says, how's the internship? And he's like, I quit on the first day.
Right.
And then he's like, how's your girlfriend? And he's like, she's crazy.
Yeah.
And so clearly he doesn't know about him. But when they're alone together, it's like he actually is back to himself, asking about his friend. Hey, I want you out here. I want you with me. But anytime Sean's around and he's in front of Sean, it's try to be cold, try to be cool, try to act like you don't care, making money moves.
Right. Yeah. And I think as he embraces kind of the Sean side of things of like, this is the way that I've become cool and I'm succeeding at these things, we see him start to be puffed up. And that was always there all along. Like even with, Face Mash, you see glimpses of that, but it's boosted way up with success.
Any of these concerns before?
It's raining.
I'm sorry?
It just started raining.
Mr. Zuckerberg, do I have your full attention?
No.
Do you think I deserve it?
What?
Do you think I deserve your full attention?
I had to swear an oath before we began this deposition, and I don't want to perjure myself, so I have a legal obligation to say no.
Okay, no. You don't think I deserve your attention?
I think if your clients want to sit on my shoulders and call themselves tall, they have a right to give it a try, but there's no requirement that I enjoy sitting here listening to people lie. You have part of my attention. You have the minimum amount. The rest of my attention is back at the offices of Facebook, where my colleagues and I are doing things that no one in this room, including and especially your clients, are intellectually or creatively capable of doing. Did I adequately answer your condescending question?
So it's like he sees himself as better than them.
Yeah.
So he has an extremely high view of himself whenever things are successful.
Right.
So he's insecure, but he's also arrogant. And I think that it's the perfect example of how pride goes both ways. Pride isn't just having too high of a view of yourself. Pride is also having too low of a view of yourself because of what you've done. In both cases, Mark feels too great about himself or too high about himself, or he feels too low about himself because of his worth is coming from himself.
Yeah, and overall, this movie is what I think about when your worth is in your actions. In his case, building this company, being a tech, genius entrepreneur. And what you see is he did it as big as you could possibly do it. I mean, making Facebook, becoming the youngest billionaire, and he still feels worthless. It didn't fulfill and it didn't satisfy.
Yeah, that's so good. So I think the perfect companion piece to this film for the believer is Tim Keller's The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness. It's like 40 pages long. So in there, he has a quote from Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis, that says, talking about pride gets no pleasure out of having something, only out of having more than the next person. We say that people are proud of being rich or clever or good looking, but they're not. They're proud of being richer or cleverer or better looking than others. If everyone else became equally rich or clever or good looking, there would be nothing to be proud about. I think that's copy and paste that on top of the Winklevoss scene where he's saying, hey, these guys are inferior to me because I have done more than them. My colleagues at Facebook are doing things that no one in this room has the creative or intellectual ability to even comprehend.
Psalm 63 talks about that satisfaction of, it says, in Psalm 63, it says, because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. And then 2 verses later, it says, my soul will be satisfied as with the richest of foods. And as we also see in the Bible, Solomon, who has everything, and he says it's all worthless,
right?
Because he gained it all.
Yeah.
And he's like, none of this satisfies like the Lord. And I think even the filmmakers would agree that that's the message, not that they would view it from a Christian perspective or that they would, take the Bible into consideration, but I think they would agree. And I think that's what they were trying to do with that last scene of him refreshing Erica's page.
He's not satisfied.
He's not satisfied. Yeah. And that's a takeaway.
Yeah. I would piggyback off of that. The end of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, therefore, anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundations on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man whose house is built on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the wind blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. In the beginning of the movie, Mark's house is being built on a foundation that is extremely weak, and so you see the cracks a lot more clearly. In social situations, his weaknesses are exposed, and so that forces him to kind of cover himself up in a way that, he's rude and he's brash and he's unkind, right? And then at the end, his house is still built on bad foundations, just as bad of foundations. He just has a bigger house. And so as the winds, as the pressure comes, his foundation is just as shaky. So he's forced to protect in the same exact way, because he's still fragile, because he still doesn't have a firm foundation that he's standing on.
Yeah. There's a comparison to be made there between earthly wisdom and heavenly wisdom.
Yeah.
His character is one of the smartest people, on the face of the earth, maybe, in terms of what he can do, what he can create, his genius. But in terms of heavenly wisdom, he's very foolish. He has built his house on not a sturdy foundation.
Yeah.
In Proverbs 18, it says, whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. And so in the movie, Eduardo is kind of viewed as like the least smart of the three characters of Mark, Eduardo, and Sean. But he does have the sound judgment in a way when it comes to valuing friendship, valuing people, not just going after bigger, better, forget everyone else. And Mark isolates himself for sure.
Yeah.
When he's seeking his own desires, he's just trying to make himself cool. So he isolates his friends who actually care about him.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was indicative of that Proverbs 18:1, just because he's ignoring sound judgment, thinking he knows better.
Right. Yeah, I think the most famous verse on pride is Proverbs 16:18 says, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before the fall. I think within the world that they've created for this character, the worst thing that could happen to him is that he loses his friends, right? That's what his whole his insecurity is based around, is he doesn't have any friends. And so again, it just hits that scene where Eduardo says, I was your only friend. You had one friend. And the subtext there is, and you blew it. Like, you were a bad friend to me because you were seeking popularity and likability in these other ways. The thing that you had, you weren't able to see that you had it.
And that hammer is dropped, that message is brought home when at the end of the movie, they're having the million user party, and he's in the office alone by himself.
Absolutely.
Everyone's partying, which ends up getting busted and whatever, and his friend has left. Andrew Garfield just had that fantastic Oscar-worthy rant, but he just had that. He gets escorted out. They go and have the millionth user party, and Mark is just in his office by himself.
He's all alone, and he had chosen Sean over Eduardo.
Yeah,
and then it turns out Sean's a bad guy. Yeah,
which I think is ultimately what the character of Mark obviously is missing. Is his value, his worth is in things that can fail.
Yeah.
And even the things that didn't fail in his case didn't satisfy.
Yeah.
I think probably the directors would take more of an approach of, if his worth was in his friends, he would have succeeded.
Right.
Because he would have felt satisfied to, have Eduardo around and whatnot. Or Erica, keep her as his love interest or anything. But even those we would know fail, even being people who are, you and I being married and having someone who loves us, it's like that relationship is not fully satisfying either.
Yep.
Because it's not God, the one who made us, the one that we were made for. We were made to be in relationship with him. All these things are just gifts, but are pictures of his relationship, his love for us.
Yep.
That's truly satisfying.
Yep.
Do you think that there's any, like a Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos would watch this movie and take away any of those things? Like, take away, oh, I should keep my friends around.
I don't think so. And maybe that's just me not having a strong enough view of how people watch movies. I think maybe people would have that thought, but I don't think anybody's going to change. I think anybody who needs that message is already ingrained to the point where it's this story is not going to affect them. And on top of that, I don't think it's telegraphed that clearly that it's like, this is...
Sure.
Which I think that's what's great about the movie is it does require a little bit of analysis.
Mm-hmm. We talked about that a little bit yesterday of films are art.
Yeah.
They're art form. They're up for interpretation, just like art is up for interpretation. All art, music or painting or whatever. And to me, a story is a film is made better by how much interpretation it's left up to.
Yeah.
If you can tell a story that's interesting with great characters and all that stuff, but the messages and the themes are open for interpretation. I mean, that's what this podcast is clearly these movies are not made for spreading the gospel or sending biblical themes, but because they're up for interpretation and they are sending messages about life and about people and about characters, then we can interpret them in that way.
Yeah.
And the more that a movie tries to just hit on a specific message they're trying to push rather than interpretation, it usually, in my opinion, ends up being not as great, not as entertaining.
I agree.
Of a movie. But the more it's open for interpretation, the more we can have discussions like this.
Yeah. And I think that's something that Jesus understood. Like it was more rare for Jesus to just say something. Mm-hmm. He would in a lot of cases just give a parable. Mm-hmm. He'd tell a story to illustrate his point.
Yeah.
And like think about like the Good Samaritan. It's like different people can get different things out of that story of like, oh, I'm the Levite. I'm the religious person that doesn't offer help but goes about my business. Mm-hmm. Or, oh, maybe there's somebody that I know that is the Samaritan, or that is the person who needs help, right? So like different things can be pulled out of stories, and I think that's something Jesus understood. I think it's such a human thing. Like we love stories. There's something that we just like we resonate with stories. And I think there's no better way for us to learn. I think it's just such a more effective way of, if I have to break down kind of what the meaning of this is, and I get there on my own instead of just being told something.
Yeah.
It's really effective.
Well, and that's a trait of Jesus, because that's a trait of God.
Yeah.
Just the whole Bible, rather than being a list of rules or a list of instruction, is a story. That it tells a story of, here's what God did and created, and here's how his people responded, and here's the good examples, the bad examples, the over centuries, here's how it unfolded as a story.
Yeah.
So that when we read the Bible, we're gaining new things from it. And obviously it's God's word, and it's endowed with his spirit. And so it's the living word that can always be teaching us.
Yeah.
But as a story too, you can read the same stories and get new things from them. And so I think we are that way.
Yeah.
That we enjoy stories, we tell stories, we interpret stories because God is that way, and he made us in his image.
Yep.
Some of us are better than others at it. Bill Paxton, bad example.
Yeah. Andrew Garfield, good example.
Great example. So what would you say is a reason why this movie would resonate with people, whether believer, not believer? Why does The Social Network resonate with people?
I think on both sides of this, I think people see, oh, he got everything he wanted and he's still unhappy. I think there's something sinful that people are like, oh, that makes me feel a little bit better about myself. But I think that there's something healthy there where it's like, oh, all this striving for more is not necessarily going to have returns to the degree that I think that it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think also, in addition to that what you talked about earlier, like there's a lot of people, I don't think everybody, but most people, I would say, want to kind of create something, like that entrepreneurial spirit. And even if it's not creating a business or creating an idea, just establishing themselves as being, tons of college kids, I'm sure, will watch that movie and be like, man, I kind of
that's gonna be me.
Yeah, like I don't feel like I know what's gonna happen or know what I'm gonna do. And then you see that and you're like, oh, I can establish myself. I can make a name for myself. I think that is a huge universal feeling, that people want to establish themselves, make a name for themselves, to create some sort of lasting legacy, some sort of reputation as a contributor, and overall valued by society as, hey, this person left their mark on the world.
Yeah. I think the reason why that resonates, that piece of it, that people want to go and build something and create something, I think that there's an argument to be made that happened. Like, people have that desire and urge because we're made in the image of God, and God is a creator. That's an attribute of God. Goes for creativity too. Like, filmmakers, they want to create because that's something that's an attribute of God, that they're made in his image. I think, just like we were saying earlier, like, the motivation for that defines whether that is sin or not. I think the idea of leaving a legacy it's such an American thing. But Solomon says a generation comes and a generation goes. And all are forgotten at some point in time, and we don't want to accept that for ourselves.
Yeah. I think we were created to worship.
Yeah.
We were created to worship God, to recognize his greatness, to recognize that he's greater than us. And so we're just made, human beings are made that way. It would be impossible to think of society without an understanding of thing A being better than thing B.
Yeah.
Like, we just couldn't even fathom what that would be if we didn't have value system built into us. We're made to view things as better and worship that. The sinful part of that is when we naturally want to make this the center of worship ourselves.
Right.
We want people to worship us. We want people to praise us rather than praising the Lord, which I think is universal in every human being that's ever lived.
More in Zuck than anybody else, though.
More in Zuck.